What makes me, extremely, extremely satisfied having joined this organization at the beginning of the second fund is that this team on strategy put 20 deals into that fund, and that fund is performing terrifically. And one of the hardest things to do, as a VC when you're raising money from institutional investors is to convince somebody that you A, have a strategy, B, have a criteria, and C, you follow it religiously and you're good at it. And so I'm just going to tick off our criteria for a second as I introduce the two people on our stage. We're a B2B SaaS investor in the US Census South, post-product, post-revenue, enough customers that I can extrapolate an entire marketplace from the conversations that you have. So therefore, some of those need to be high signal customers. So the company I'm going to introduce you to, and the extraordinary company, Chick-fil-A, I'm going to introduce that representative and their relationship in a minute. So already, Connor was standing there with a great background in Charlie Cinchetti's experience in the facilities and commercial real estate industry for 20 years prior to that. And he had, for example, SL Green, the #1 landlord in Manhattan. And that's a pretty early signal customer, right? So now you get the picture of our criteria. And then the second half of the equation, we're investing in founder-led, founder-controlled companies. So you better believe picking the right person as the leader is half the battle. And if you round that off, you get my point. So we saw in Connor all the 4 or 5 things that are necessary, can take a bullet on behalf of a team member, can fire a bullet where it needs to go, and just doesn't like to waste time. But he's a heck of a nice person, really great people will work for him. He gets energized by the challenges of the business in a way that, most of us would probably not sleep at night. So we got both the criteria met, we got both the leader that we needed, and then a year later, not even a year later, we're going to introduce you to on the panel here with us, Bethany Hart of Chick-fil-A, and she'll explain what she does for them. But that's my introduction of Aetos. And Connor, I'd ask Connor perhaps to do the elevator version of what is it Aetos does. And then let's introduce our guest. Have you introduce our guest, please?
Do I use one of these?
Please do.
Can you guys, is it on? Is it on now? Perfect. Very cool. Thank you for that glamorous introduction. So essentially, Aetos was founded with the premise of what can we do with visual? We saw this wave coming crashing of the cost to scan reality, the technology to capture reality and then bring that to the cloud, and what that could enable for facilities, for operations across the board. And we wanted to be a part of that revolution. What we didn't see was software companies leveraging that scan, that 3D capture of reality for operational utility in enterprise clients, assets, and facilities across the globe. And so we said, wow, what an opportunity to go do that. With our background in commercial real estate, facilities, green building, we were uniquely positioned to do so. And so we set apart on the audacious task of going to build the software stack that could run the world through this 3D scanning platform. So, in a nutshell, what we'll do is we'll go out into the world and scan everything from a factory, an industrial facility, or a Chick-fil-A restaurant. And then we host that on the cloud, and it's our software that powers the maintenance, the training, and the automation of all sorts of different processes and systems within those organizations. And it's just been a game changer, because when I can send somebody a work order that has a valve or a henny penny, as they call it, a little fryer in Chick-fil-A, and they know exactly where they're going, exactly what they're looking at, and all the asset information is right there in their pocket, that really changes how the efficiencies for a large organization. So that's kind of the premise there.
And so if we have Bethany with us. Bethany, if you wouldn't mind, tell us a little about you and what you do for Chick-fil-A, but also tell us about Chick-fil-A. It's an extraordinary company right here in our backyard, that the dimensions of which most of us don't really appreciate how big they are.
Yeah, hi everyone. Bethany Hart. I work in restaurant development within Chick-fil-A. Restaurant development, so we essentially own and maintain and build our whole portfolio of restaurants. We hit our 3,000th restaurant this year. We are in Puerto Rico, we are in Canada, and we are expanding to Singapore and the UK next year. And essentially speaking, our department itself is a really big real estate department, essentially, or company, I should say. And we manage all of that off of spreadsheets. So my team is called Process Improvement and Technology, and what we're doing is introducing technology to improve our processes and streamline our work. And so one of those topics is how we met Aetos, and we call the program RAMP. And essentially, it's a way to capture restaurant data, attribute data, like square footage, number of fryers, anything that can define capacity in a way that's usable at a macro level, so that we can make good, solid decisions around whether we need to build a new restaurant, whether we need to do some capacity work within the restaurant that currently exists, et cetera. So doing that at scale is our biggest problem right now.
Thank you, Bethany, for the introduction. So the discussion topic really is the objectives of Chick-fil-A and the benefits to Chick-fil-A of an Aetos partnership. So I'm going to start with Bethany, a question. What was Chick-fil-A looking for when Chick-fil-A found Aetos, and then why were you interested?
So there's a lot of companies out there that do restaurant scanning with Matterport. None of them have a technology that they can actually provide to house those scans and evaluate the data. Because if you're looking at 3,000 plus restaurants, because actually by 2030 we're going to double our restaurants and triple our assets. If you're looking at that big of a portfolio and trying to make a decision within a couple of weeks on what each one of those restaurants needs, you can't look at a scan on an individual level. You have to make decisions at a macro level. And so what we were finding is that most of the companies out there just did not have a robust enough solution for that. Not to mention, it's going to require AI. It's going to require the people to do the scanning. I mean, it's just the scale of it is really huge. So when we met Connor, essentially, it's the first time I've worked with a company whose tech we don't have to customize. We don't have to add special features to it so that it's Chick-fil-A-ified. Because honestly, we don't do our business like most people run their business. And so for that reason, we've never been able to buy off-the-shelf technology and not customize it. Whether it's big or small, we've always had to customize it. And so far, I mean, Connor is delivering on every aspect that we need.
Well, that's called product market fit, but it's very comforting to the investor to hear it from Chick-fil-A. So Connor, I personally have done selling of enterprise software, actually nowhere near as good as you in all I've done in all my career. But, isn't it really hard to get in and make the right enterprise contacts and even get into the knowledge that they're evaluating and making a purchase decision that you might be a participant in? How did you get into Chick-fil-A?
It is very hard, and there's a great story here. So I'll give you a little story time with Connor here. We have one of our early investors when we did our friends and family round way back when, happens to be one of the original owners of 2 Chick-fil-A restaurants. I hear that doesn't happen very often these days. And he was on our cap table, and he said, "Gosh, there's these people that I think you could get introduced to. I think there could be something there with Aetos and Chick-fil-A at a larger scale." And so this led to an introduction to a guy named Craig Williams, who runs their restaurant development process, essentially constructing and renovating restaurants. And then that led to an introduction to Bethany. Well, there's a little pause here. So I found out that I was getting this lunch was like a Wednesday, I think. So I was like, oh shoot, I need to get ready for this. So I called my buddy Mark, and we went out to Birmingham, and I personally scanned the restaurant, the entire thing. And then I got my team on a 24-hour clock, and we said, let's build out the best demo of this experience with their own restaurant that we could possibly build. Because I only get one shot at this. I get one impression at a lunch to get her convinced that we are awesome, and look at what our technology can do. So I am not going to waste this bullet. So we did. We built the best possible demonstration of the use case that we thought they might have. We tagged a bunch of assets, showed our platform, and essentially when we had that lunch, we showed her in about, 15 seconds that we could actually identify and label every single asset that matters to them in a consistent way, and then roll that data into a centralized database that allows them to track this at scale across their entire portfolio. And just being able to show that visually in about 15 seconds immediately got the gears turning and provided the impetus to accelerate the adoption and the sale across the portfolio, because the value was so clear. But it took a little bit of that startup hustle and then a little bit of just an amazing product to get this to work.
Well, the value you delivered on day one, it's almost like a mini implementation.
Exactly.
So kudos to you for thinking of that. So now Chick-fil-A has bought, it's rolling out. You're only at the beginning of what looks like it's going to be a long and fruitful relationship. But
125 stores.
What do you think are the main benefits? What are the 2 or 3 main benefits, Bethany, that you would describe that Chick-fil-A gets out of this? Or specific problems that it solves?
Yeah, so knowledge about our restaurants. So our most important business rule is don't bother an operator. And operators are franchisee owners. So the least amount of touch points to a restaurant is our top priority, because the mental load for an operator to have to manage people constantly coming to his restaurant to do things other than cook and sell chicken is really high, and not to mention the fact how disheartening when your support center calls you to ask you what's in your restaurant, right? So that is our number one problem that we're always trying to solve, no matter what process you're talking about. So knowing what's in our restaurants from our desks is priceless. It would literally change how we do business. And I mean, my partners at Chick-fil-A are literally calling this like, this is the before phase, and then once we implement this program, we'll have an after phase, and that's how we'll live from then on. And so we're really excited about it for the operator's experience, but then also the amount of savings and money is, I don't even know if I can define it. I don't even think we understand all of the savings that we could actually get from this program.
Well,
Connor, you might have to raise your prices on your next.
It's called prove it first. Give, then ask.
Not Chick-fil-A.
Just to elaborate a little bit there, like think of the process, right? Of I need to find out how many square feet of countertop space I have at this location because I want to roll out a spicy pimento cheese sandwich. Mm-hmm. And so I need to go send somebody to that location, get that measurement, report that back, and then maybe 3 months later I have some actionable data. Well, 6 months, forgive me. With Aetos, I can just check that immediately. I didn't even need to know that I needed that data. I can just go get that because I have the scan imaged and I have a platform that aggregates all this in one centralized repository. And that's just one example. Think of the other things here. For example, we have 2 square feet of unused space. That could be a whole nother refrigerator unit. We now increased our capacity to store chicken, which then increases our ability to serve more volume at that location. And those are just like 2 micro examples of the derivative value that this whole stack enables. And I think being able to work with you to like unpack these things and learn, wow, there's like this whole fountain of value that we can go provide. And we can tap in here and we can tap in here. And then it's just a matter of running it through the process.
So that gets to the question of where's the return come from. Obviously, the return is very good, and you didn't disclose any confidential numbers. We got that part. So, okay, now you're in the after, and you're living in that, and that's a good thing from the way you smile about it. That's a very good thing, I think. But what's the future? What happens next?
Yeah, so Connor made a joke. So essentially what I told Connor was, I hope our partnership with Aetos is like a marriage. What did I say? Like hard at
Long and
times,
painful.
long and painful,
And
long
mutually beneficial.
and
I
mutually
think those were the words
beneficial.
that you
Yes,
used.
exactly. Yes. Yeah, honestly, the world is our oyster with this. We are only limited by our imagination when it comes to the virtual capture of our restaurants. I mean, literally, my mind goes crazy when I think of all the opportunities we have. We're talking like, right now, we have a 6-month backlog when an operator says, hey, come out to my restaurant and tell me how I can do better. We have a 6-month backlog because we have to fly to that restaurant. We have to take measurements with our little tape measure. We have to, walk through that restaurant, and we wouldn't have to do that. We would have no backlog. We could answer them immediately. Then when you think about real, true digital twins, right? Like, how cool would it be if we could actually follow the path that a team member uses to make chicken and pull that down, right? Do some Lean Six Sigma on that and really understand, is this the path that they need to be taking? Can we rearrange things to make this better? All of that can be accomplished with this reality capture tool. So honestly, like, the world is our oyster if we can get this done.
I think a couple other things that I'm really excited about here is one of the interesting insights that we've had now with about 125 locations in our portfolio together is you start to see patterns. And every time we identify a fryer, a point of sale, a delivery module, a certain light fixture, a table of type X, we're training a data machine behind this. And so, right now it's a little bit of Wizard of Oz behind the curtain, doing a lot of data entry and putting things together. But, very soon, and we've actually had some tests that demonstrate this internally, that with every time we do this, it gets smarter. And I think the whole thesis here is about AI with this whole day. And oh my goodness, the amount of information that we're going to have, the insights that we're going to be able to derive, the database that we're collecting. We're going to be able to scan a location and the next hour give insights that would have taken months and years possibly to accomplish. We'll know immediately everything that's there, everything that needs to improve, and everything that could be stood to leverage for things like capacity, supply chain optimization, and downstream processes. And so that's on the AI side in terms of the database. But then you also look at the worker. Think of the maintenance tech that has to go service that asset. They need to go to a rooftop unit and understand when was the last time that was serviced. What is the maintenance history there? Well, now we can just pull up your phone, identify that asset, we know where you are, and we're going to pull up that entire log of what that's happening because we've already scanned it. We know what it is. We know the entire history there. And so everything from the execution of work, the collection of data, and then streamlining all that with the robust reporting and analytics, next thing you know, we're actually sort of displacing 4 or 5 different applications that are currently getting utilized in a sort of clunky Frankenstein hodgepodge collection of tech stack on the back end. And that's what gets me really excited, is the ability to just make things more efficient and drive more value, more production at scale. And so there's some really cool technology pieces that we can go put in place to enable some of that downstream value. And there's a ton of it that we're already delivering. So that's what I'm excited about.
Well, you're delivering a ton of value to your investors, and we're grateful for that. But I think it has to do with delivering a ton of value with a good solution that is delivered well. So kudos to you. The first year has been fantastic, and I can't imagine anything but as good or better we are running a little behind in our agenda today, so I'm going to open it up maybe for one question from the audience, if anybody has one. Yes, sir.
So setup is an important aspect of this. How do you see the length of time to set up coming down over time?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I can give you the short-term answer and maybe the long-term answer. Short-term, just things scale with better processes as we coordinate. We've learned a lot in this first go-around. Currently, we're sending people, contractors, that show up at 10 o'clock at night. They go and they finish about 3:30 in the morning, and we're able to do this without any disruption to the staff, which was actually a big milestone that we had to prove. Because we can't only scan on Sundays. That wouldn't work. It wouldn't scale. Where this is going as a technology is the cost to scan reality is trending down to quasi-zero. And you're going to see me as a CEO repeat this statement a lot over the next 5 years, because there's this wave coming where, whether it's drones, whether it's autonomous robot capture, whether it's better camera technology, whether it's Gaussian splat technology, nerve technology, there's all this stuff that's happening, cameras, et cetera, that are making the difficulty to capture our reality, it's going down. And so I think right now it's a process of bringing a person with the tripod and doing the capture and doing all that. So, somewhat robust experience. And that's just going to be, I walk with a 360 camera on my helmet and it takes 30 minutes. And then it's going to be, I deploy an autonomous, drone that does that with no interference. And then eventually there's just cameras that are bringing a live state of this into the cloud at any given time. So we're trying to ride this wave, right? And we know where it's going. It's inevitable. And so that's how I think it continues to evolve. And at some point, this entire setup process is going to be a thing of the past. We're very aware of that. So being first to market is what matters.
Well, that's all we had time for this. Thanks. Let me ask you both. Let's give them a big hand here. Both the amazing company Chick-fil-A and the great accomplishment. And I'll hand this over to next on the agenda. I'll look at the agenda.